Hello, and welcome to Get Recc'd. I am your host, Don Falgout.
And I am your spooky ghost host, legally distinct, Stephen Falgoo.
Oh my god, blood has poured out of my eyes and onto the screen,
Whoa!
and it is just covered everything. It's such a mess.
I've actually become blood.
Oh my god, you're just a puddle of blood.
Yep.
Oh my god.
You know what's crazy? There's bones inside of me.
So it's like blood, like a mass of blood and bones, like a like a coagulated just blob.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty spooky.
That's pretty scary.
Welcome, everyone, to our annual Halloween episode on, of course, today, which is Halloween.
In some time zones in the world.
Exactly.
So shout out to them.
Well, actually, in all time zones. Let it be known from this point on, this exact moment is Halloween, as decreed by us, and we have the authority to do that.
Yeah, I mean our screen is covered in blood, so
Mm-hmm.
so I
But
mean
welcome.
really when you think about it, who out there is even the official headmaster of Halloween, you know? It's really up to the people. So
Well, probably like David S. Pumpkins or something.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe in our time making and working on Get Recc'd, we've actually made a couple friends who I believe are involved in the making of Halloween.
Ooh, can we introduce our friends?
No, they're long gone.
Oh, well, that's
They're
sad.
long gone. If you get it, they're it's because they're
Are they
dead.
blood?
They're blood. Well, no, actually, they never had any blood at any point. Anyway, yeah, no.
Wait, so you're saying that our friends that may or may not be joining us have always existed in the form that they exist in when
Yes,
they join us?
yes.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
It's yeah. One time they were alive and now they are not, but there's been no physical change. You wouldn't really be able to tell
Oh,
because really nothing's changed at all. I mean, they can still move. But you know, there's been a lot of drama in this friends group. You know, we've all gone our separate ways. I don't really think they're going to be joining us, but I know that's sad, and everybody really wants to see them around. But you know, sometimes things just happen that way. And I think you know, on that really low note, I think we should get into what Steven recommended to me last time for our spooky episode today.
yes, last time I recommended to you ABBA, which, of course, is Brian David Gilbert's parody of ABBA songs in the style of various Halloween monsters. This came out last year on Spotify and has some associated videos. Although, from what I remember, only one of them really has like a true music video associated with it. The other are just kind of like still image sorts of things. But yeah, last time I recommended ABBA.
Yeah, oh my god. And speaking of I think I hear a knock on the door. And it's really freaking
Oh,
me out. I think I have to answer. I have to answer. I have to answer because if I don't, I might get invaded.
wait, hold on. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Oh, it's our
Oh my
friend.
god, it's Billy! It's Malorice! It's Ashley and
Wow.
Zoe! It's Gary! It's Lindsay! It's Mr. P! It's Lance! It's Beatrice! And it's Glenda. And I gotta say, everybody's having a grand old time except for Glenda, who seems really frustrated because she just cannot stop punching Steven in the mouth. I'm sorry about that. I know you're going to have a lot of pain throughout this episode. It might be difficult to speak with a fist just being thrust into your face, but that's just how it is. Well, thankfully, however, we
Yeah,
have two new friends to help us along with this predicament, and that is Hector over here on top of my head, just doing a I don't know if it's a dance or if Hector's trying to get somewhere, but if he is, he's not really making any progress. And then we have Stephanie over there, the protector of Steven's head, just on her way to just fuck up Glenda. Like it is unreal. She is just hauling ass over there, like fucking 70 miles per hour. Absolutely insane.
I do want to say my side seems much more of a work hazard than your side.
Well, you may say that, but Mr. P is concocting some extremely dangerous chemicals.
That is true. There is some dark magic going on there
There's
for sure.
something that and I don't know what his intentions are, which I never really have. You know, he's been here every time, but I don't really feel like either of us have ever really acquainted with Mr. P. I mean, how can you? He's a little bit erratic.
I just want to say something as well. I misspoke last year. I said that Gary was throwing a nasty curve, but actually this is Gary's slider. Maybe even a changeup or a changeup or a fastball with some motion. I talked to Gary actually after last night's game. Gary said they're working on their slider right now, or their curveball, but they're not ready to show it, and looks like they came to play with the slider again. I mean, it's a nasty slider, don't get me wrong,
It's
but
nasty.
I just wanted to say that, you know, Gary, they're not ready to show their curveball quite yet.
Yeah, maybe next time. Maybe next time. Well, anyway, welcome, friends. I'm so glad we've all gotten back together. The only one who still seems a little shaken up by all of the drama that went down seems to be Glenda, but I'm sure she'll get over it next time. Anyway, let's talk about this project, ABBA, by Brian David Gilbert. So, first of all, very Halloween. Very Halloween. Okay, because normally we're just talking about general scary things, but rarely are we truly, well, I think except for last time, truly talking about something directly Halloween related. This is really the time of the season for ABBA. And I mean, I think the main thing that's worth noting here is just the obvious absurdity of the concept. I think like it's not I think it says in one of the videos or in the description that this was just like a joke conversation between like him and another friend, and that that just ended up turning into a full recording of all of the songs, which is not really surprising because it does kind of sound like the thing like it's like, oh, I have this funny idea, like if you think about it, there's a bunch of ABBA songs that could be sung by like Halloween villains. It's like, oh, that's kind of funny. And then like to actually go through actually go through with it entirely like this is admirable. Because really on the face of it, it's only like a mildly sort of charming gag, but it's the commitment that makes it work. You know, it's like one thing, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's kind of funny, but you know, 1 minute into one ABBA song about a vampire, and it's like, well, I already get it, and it doesn't really, there's nothing really more to get. But there is, however, a lot of character to each of these parodies. I mean, are they even, I mean, they're kind of parodies. I think a lot of the lyrics are the same, but there are
They
a
are
couple of
parodies,
words. Yeah, there's like maybe 25% or less of the lyrics changed, but it's more like the performance and the joke of it and the recontextualization of it that makes it a parody. And that stuff's fun. I mean, it was funny because I think like that he really has to get into character as each of these Halloween villains, although I do question the whole thing about them being Halloween villains, because like the vampire, obviously, yes. The mummy, of course. Dr. Frankenstein, of course. I don't know 100% about Captain Hook and the killer robot. I mean, I can see it. You know, it's not a crazy stretch. It's a bit odd, though. And I think, like, if we're only going to do, like, 5 Halloween Villains. I don't know who the other two would be, in fairness, but if I thought about it, I'm sure there's more popular ones than those. But on the flip side, those two did end up being the most out there of the parodies, and that kind of made them work. I think it's really, the concept is not that great to me. Like, it's silly, but again, it's like something you might chuckle over once you get over. I really liked the execution because it wasn't just that like the all the songs really had Brian David Gilbert getting into character and performing these ABBA songs in a unique way, but it was also just like um, some of them ended up being performed like really, really well. In particular, the first track, the only one with the music video, which is "Lay All Your Love on Me," but it's sung by a vampire. I thought that the like just as a cover, it was pretty killer. Like great sounding synths, great vocal performance, and then you add like the comedy of a vampire singing it. It just adds like that extra little charming touch for Halloween, which I appreciated.
Yeah, there is certainly a commitment to the bit here that is very commendable. I'll mention to the parody part, one of my favorite lyrical changes is when Brian David Gilbert performs "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme," a man after midnight, where the man after midnight is Frankenstein's monster. The lyrical change is, let me pull up the original lyric, and then I will give you the lyrical change. But while I'm doing that, I think what's so fun about this as well is like it's not only a commitment to the bit, but they definitely put a lot of love into this project. It wasn't just like I mean, it literally was just they had an idea and they went with it, but there are a lot of interesting things that they did musically as well that change up the tracks quite a bit, give them a different tone or a different feeling, as you might expect if a disco track were sung by a Halloween monster. Okay, so the bridge in "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme a Man After Midnight" is "There's not a soul out there, no one to hear my prayer." Dr. Victor Frankenstein remarks, "There's not a soul out there, why not make one in here?" Which I really like that concept. I think of all the tracks here, that one was my favorite, honestly, conceptually and just how they played it. Although "Lay All Your Love on Me," where they're a vampire, is also quite good. But
Yeah, I would say "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme" was the most clever. Like that seemed to me the most. That one was the one where I think I got the idea the most too. Like, it's obviously a goofy idea, but it does kind of rely on. It relies a little bit on on the assumption that it actually makes sense. Like, is it really true that ABBA songs make just as like work just as well when sung by Halloween villains? And this is sort of like a proof of concept of that idea, I guess. But I think "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme" made the most sense. And that was pretty clever. The Man After Midnight thing. Yeah, that's pretty good. I also thought, although it could have just been because of how much the song was transformed, but SOS was very entertaining. Like it's
it
turned
almost
into
became
like
a
a,
sea
yeah,
shanty.
into a sea shanty of Doctor Hook, which I mean, Doctor Hook, Captain Hook, which makes sense. Um, it's called SOS, so he's like out at sea, haha. But it's more about, I guess in the original song, the SOS is like a cry for help for like a lost love, and in this song, it's more of a cry for help for his lost hand, and
Yeah.
that's funny. I
Can
think
I just say, by the way, man, ABBA has some good tracks.
obviously, yeah,
Like the other thing about this is like you have to have such an appreciation for the disco band ABBA, and they have such an incredible track list and foundation that these riffs on those tracks are fun and also make you want to go listen to the original
Yeah, and I also agree that the Halloween change ups and stuff, that was kind of what I was talking about with the opening track. Um, is like just the synth work and everything on these covers is really good, and it does change the song significantly to the point where it's actually kind of, aside from just the joke, it's fun to listen to on its own. This ABBA project, plenty of parodies out there are funny to listen to, and that's really it. Like, why otherwise would you want to listen to that version? There are renditions on this project that legitimately bring some value as covers, which I appreciated. Though I will say, on that note, it was only really like one or two, because I felt like a lot of it was very much novelty. Like the Mummy song, which was handily my least favorite. I felt that one worked the least, which was also kind of the joke that it wasn't working, but I just didn't really feel like that helped. Thankfully, it was really short, but yeah, it was, whatever. But all the other ones were amusing. I mean, the Killer Robot one was one of the more musically interesting ones, weirdly enough. Just transforming the song into like a super digital sounding version was kind of neat. So, I mean, honestly, like, yeah, I would agree that they did have a lot of appreciation for ABBA, and that allowed them to recognize that they needed to actually do something if they wanted this project to stand out. Because it's one thing to just parody this ABBA songs, but oh, it's a vampire. Like, if the song was otherwise kept exactly the same musically or as close as possible, it just wouldn't have worked as well. But I think like this is actually a pretty entertaining Halloween project, and it does a lot of what Halloween should do, which is it's silly. Like, the concepts are horror concepts, but it's silly. Um, and that makes it a very fun little Halloween music piece.
The other thing I wanted to mention is last time we talked about potentially listening to new tracks because they had been announced and were coming out between our last episode and this episode. But it ended up that those new tracks, for one reason or another, took a little bit of a different direction and highlighted some of the same concepts, but with the Bee Gees. So we are only currently talking about last year's track release, which focused on ABBA.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing to mention is because these are all videos. In addition to, it is actually released as like a little EP, but they are all videos. Although really, there is only like one music video, and then there's a bunch. The other ones are all more like visual accompaniment. Like, they're kind of videos, but not really a lot happens. There's a lot of like pick photos and stuff used in, almost like what you see in like lyric videos, except there aren't even any lyrics on screen. And all that's fine. I thought the visual accompaniment was cute. The one music video that they did have was okay. I mean, it worked better musically than as a series of videos, honestly, but it was there, so might as well mention it.
I don't know if there's too much else to talk about with this one, honestly. Just a fun little side project that I wanted to highlight. It felt very in theme with our current Halloween episode.
Yeah, I think Stephanie liked it a lot. It's got her jogging.
Yeah, that's true. And
I guess I'll wrap it up then if that's what we.
sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, I liked ABBA. Thought it was cute. I
Would you give it a P?
A P out of Z, as in the entire alphabet.
Well, that should make Mr. P happy, I think.
Um, yeah, like as a little EP, I think it's cute. I don't know what would I score it, like maybe a 6 or a 7. I'll go 7. Uh, yes, yeah, I liked it. I thought it was funny. I think only one of the tracks didn't really work. All the other ones worked to some degree, and I did appreciate the commitment, and I appreciated how a lot of the songs worked musically in a bit of a new way that made them fun. So yeah, I'll go 7 for this. And would I recommend it? Yeah, for Halloween, sure. I mean, it takes like how many minutes to listen to? Maybe like 10, a little bit over 10. Very brief and pretty funny. Uh, Gets you in the Halloween spirit. So that's what really matters.
Yeah, I feel like with this one, a rating doesn't really do it justice, I guess. Like, I'm probably about the same. I'd give it like a 7, but it's just a fun little project that I think I would definitely recommend you go listen to. And as we, or as I had just mentioned, Brian David Gilbert came out with a couple tracks this year as well, which were also quite fun. And I'm sure we will get back to their YouTube channel at some point, which is foreshadowing for a episode in the future
Oh
at
my
some
God.
indef- indefinite time length
Wow.
from now.
Well, when
Anyway,
you recommend this to me, I am going to yell spoilers. Okay, you've spoiled this for me, and
yeah,
I'm just
sorry.
not going to be able to ever have a good time with this ever again. So thank
Well,
you.
I'm getting punched in the face
Yeah.
in response, so
Damn.
that's my punishment.
All right, well, I guess with that, we'll move on to what I recommended to you, Stephen.
Let's do it.
All right, I recommended to Stephen the film Eraserhead. Very similar ballpark to the ABBA project. And
Yeah, I was surprised by all the ABBA tracks in this one. I didn't know that we had aligned it in that way.
well, I mean, we do always plan it every time. Anyway, this film was directed by David Lynch. It was released in 1977. It's a realist horror film. This was David Lynch's directorial debut, at least for a feature-length film, and it famously took an extremely long time to make. I don't know the exact amount of years, but it's irregular the amount of time it took to make, like somewhere around 9 or 10 years for this movie, which was mostly independent, I think. And I'll just put it over to Steven to talk about Eraserhead.
Well, can I just start by saying, and this is not hashtag ad, but HBO Max has an incredible selection of Halloween titles. Like, I watched both House and Eraserhead thanks to HBO Max, which is crazy to me because they are not the most popular of Halloween movie, and that is just like a part of the catalog that is available. So I just wanted to get that
Well,
out there.
just so that we know it's not a hashtag ad, but we also leave open space for it to potentially be a hashtag ad in the future. We neither endorse nor do we not endorse HBO Max in the usage of said service.
Exactly. And that's why I'm being held up at sword point right now.
Right, by their legal team.
That's their legal team on my shoulder. Which honestly, kudos. I know they've been looking for a job for a long time. Lance has been looking for a job for a long time, and that they were able to finally secure one. I'm just very excited for them.
Yeah,
It's a good next step.
I gotta admit, it was not what I saw them doing with their life.
Yeah, I know it was, but you kind of think about it, and with the sword, it's like it makes a lot of sense. So anyway, back to Eraserhead, a film by David Lynch. This movie is so crazy to me. I think that you have to be in such a specific headspace to be able to watch this one, and I was not in that headspace, and it really threw me for a loop, to say the least. I will say there are a lot of things I really like here. Those are the cinematography, the visual elements, and the soundtrack. All incredible. I just think there's such a, like, from beginning to end, I would not call this movie scary at all, but I would certainly call it grotesque. I would certainly call it disturbing. And every aspect of the film's creation, all the different layers of this film from the onset, from like minute zero, help to drive that point home. I mean, you never feel comfortable while watching this film. There is just so much oddity going on. There is just a grating white noise and like different layered electrical noises and things popping, and it just is so eerie, and It makes you feel so disturbed from the onset. And obviously there's a lot of visual elements that go along with that too. A lot of like crushing of things and like guts and such. Um, but man, is it a weird film? uh, it's hard to say honestly, like, and I'll have to rate it, so I'll have to do it eventually in this episode. But it's hard to say how I feel about it because it's like so out there and bizarre. There's so much going on, and I feel that like in a way that's good. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'm sure if you watch it many times, you can really pull out a lot of different thematic elements. There's definitely like kind of a sexual undertone of the whole thing. Certainly, that's a part of this. There's like a, I don't know if I'd call it like this theme of industry and like, you know, a human's place in the world. It's just there's so much going on, but you really have to be looking for it, and you really have to be like engrossed. And at times I thought was what was so interesting is the movie almost made me feel like it didn't want me to be watching it. Which I've never experienced that before. Like, one, in what was happening, like at times the film felt so personal that it was almost like voyeuristic, but also in the way that it would like hold on to things for an unnerving amount of time, that it's almost like trying to get you to look away. And I thought that was really, really an interesting aspect of the film. There's so much that is done with the black and white too, as well. I feel like, you know, obviously for a long time that was, you didn't have a choice. There was black and white until there was color. But I feel like now there are some there I feel like there's still a lot of room to explore in that space. And I think Eraserhead does a really good job of exploring those things. At times it felt almost like a Twilight Zone episode, and at times it felt like its very distinct own thing. I think of like The Artist from a little while ago as another example of a movie I feel like really took black and white into an interesting direction, and I feel like Eraserhead does that as well. There's just a lot going on in this one.
Yeah, I would liken the whole feel. So there's this one scene in the film where they're at a family dinner, and I would kind of liken a lot of the feeling of watching a lot of this movie to being in like a really uncomfortable social setting. The movie
Yes, for
just
sure.
makes you feel like really anxious and on edge, but not really. You don't necessarily know why. Like, you don't know what you're fearing. It's just really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that whole scene is such a good microcosm of the film, as you pointed out, but like not just them at the dinner, but like them at Mary's house in general. Like the mom corners hold on. Henry, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the mom corners Henry and like is pressing Henry whether he slept with Mary, and then like very slowly and uncomfortably starts to like kiss him, and it just gets like so unnerving, the whole thing. And that's such a good microcosm of what the film is.
Yeah, because like this is something that David Lynch tends to do when he directs dialogue, but it's like really, really um it's really excessive in this film. And it's just like the slowness of how everybody talks and responds to each other in every single scene. It's so uncomfortable. It just makes me so upset to watch. Like, somebody will say something and then the other person will just kind of blankly stare for a moment before saying their thing. And it's also in the line delivery. It doesn't ever feel natural. Everything's like really weird. And so you don't it's hard to pin down exactly what characters are feeling. I feel like people do act a lot with their face in this movie, which is great. And I think the acting is phenomenal in the entire film. Everybody does such a good job capturing the vision of what Lynch was going for, but it just so happens that that vision is so like disconnected from reality that it's hard sometimes to interpret what is going on in the dialogue and what characters are trying to say or what they want or what they mean or what they think. And it just adds this extra layer of like fogginess to your ability to interpret the events. That does make the movie feel very difficult, very challenging to understand. And you can say that about a lot of Lynch's work. What I really like about Eraserhead is that there's um I feel like most people who watch this film even once will be able to pick up on like something that they can take away from the movie. There's so many like images, there's so many symbols throughout the film that could point to some theme that you can relate to, that it's like very easy to interpret this film a variety of different ways and at least come away with something after having seen it, because it is very abstract. So like understanding what's supposed to be happening in the story, and especially I think understanding what the actual intent was behind it is really difficult. But getting something out of it yourself, seeing something and being like, I relate to this feeling. Maybe you don't know how, but you relate to the feeling. That is really powerful in the movie. And it just so happens that all of those feelings that the film has you relate to are just not pleasant. Like, what makes it a horror movie is not in any conventional sense. It is really just, as Steven pointed out, it really is just discomfort, which a lot of horror plays with, but it like tries to capitalize on in some way. And this film just doesn't do that. It just makes you uncomfortable, and then that's it. And there's very little reprieve from that. There's very little to help you understand why it's doing that, but it is a very relatable emotion. I brought up the family dinner scene because I just found that extremely powerful to me on my first viewing. Like, it really put me in a headspace that I've been in a lot in my life, and it made me feel terrible watching it. But it was this weird kind of feeling where it was also kind of funny. Like, I feel like the whole movie is kind of funny. It's really uncomfortable, but it's kind of funny. Like, you don't know whether you should be laughing or not, but there's a lot of like images and things that happen which are just so absurd. It's funny. I won't spoil anything because I'd actually like to go spoiler free for this particular review. I think this is a movie you have to watch not knowing exactly what you're in for. But I will say there is one scene involving the title of the film, which is so insane that like by the time it's over, it's just funny. You're just like, what was any of that? What just happened? But it was undeniably amusing. And I feel like this is a movie that a lot of people are going to watch and not have any clue what they're watching, but they're not going to want to stop watching it. Because it really does pull you into its weird world. And I love that about it. You mentioned the visuals, which is a huge aspect to that, but I really think the acting is so good in this movie, because when you consider like the actors are a part of Lynch's vision here, they all capture whatever vibe he wanted so impeccably well. Like in the way that they say the lines in just like slightly weird but very intentional ways, and the pacing of their acting and the way that they carry themselves on screen. It's fantastic.
Yeah, certainly this movie is surrealist too. And when you go and look at a plot synopsis of this thing, just to read it is like a trip. And that's what this whole movie feels like, for sure. I mean, the one scene that I remember that really sticks out to me was, and again, we're spoiler free, but at one point, Mary decides to leave Henry and just grabs the bed and starts like slowly shaking it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and nobody says a word, I think, through
And
that
nobody
entire
says
moment.
anything. It just, the bed is shaking slowly for like way too long. And that's like what the whole movie feels like.
Yeah, I will mention something that I take away from this film. This is my interpretation. It is fairly common one, but really it is very hard to tell what Lynch wanted in the movie. But I think at least one aspect of the movie that is very strongly in there, like one strong theme that's in there, is the fear of becoming a parent. It's like there is a baby in this film. That's all I'll say about it. I don't even know if you can. I don't know if it is a baby or not. Really, it's something, and the whole film we watch Henry uncomfortably try to care for it, but like because the baby is so strange and so like inhuman to him, he just has no idea what he's doing. And we have no idea if it's working as an audience. And you have a lot of characters surrounding Henry who all, play into this idea of parenthood in one way or another. He has something that you could maybe call an affair at some point. Um, he has the mother of the baby who hates the baby so much at one point she decides to leave, as Steven mentioned, and there's a whole bunch of things like that. And it just really puts you in the headspace of not having any fucking clue what you're doing as a young parent. He's like in this dilapidated bedroom. That's where he lives. It's just this weird bedroom where there's like a plant that isn't in a pot. It's just like a pile of dirt with a tree on it. There's like pictures of nuclear explosions in his apartment. It's like the weirdest, most uncomfortable apartment you've ever seen. And in this setting, he has to learn to become a dad. And I feel like that was what I mostly took away from the film, is what it was trying to say. I feel like the whole industrial world can represent poverty, which he obviously is in. And so are Mary's family.
I think what I took away from the film is I have to try this hairstyle.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Did we wrap it up?
Sure, yeah.
And I just mentioned before, but I don't know how. Oh, wait. Well, one other thing I wanted to mention. This film reminds me, it's reminiscent of the scene in The Shining where they're going into all the hotel rooms. But imagine that's an entire movie. So I just wanted to mention that.
I believe Kubrick's favorite said around the time he made The Shining that his favorite film was Eraserhead.
Wow. Well, there you go. Look at that connection.
You can see the influence there.
I think I like this. I don't know what I would rate it. I guess I would rate it a 7. I don't know. It's so hard for me to give this a rating. This is like such a different beast that I don't even like the way that I think about film ratings. This transcends film ratings. How about that? Put that on the back of the DVD case, the VHS case. I would recommend it. Although this is certainly one that's going to be incredibly polarizing. I don't think you can come through this experience and be right in the middle. I think you're going to hate it or you're going to at least like it quite a lot or quite a bit. But I think that it's worth the experience. And the movie's not that long either. So I think it's certainly watchable for its length.
Yeah. I would give this film a 9. I very highly recommend it. This is one of my favorite movies. And I've watched it a number of times now, and I feel like it opens up a lot on rewatches too. It never really loses the effect. But the amount of things that you can notice in the movie and the amount of like intentional details that are pretty genius all throughout this film are really, really impressive. It's great on a first watch because you get to watch it and just kind of be like, what the fuck? And it just takes you on this crazy trip. And it's great on future watches because you start to unpack and unlock certain things about it. And that is not to say that the entire film ever fully reveals itself to you. There's always things in here. There are things in here that are just bizarre. And even if you were to completely understand the entire point of every single thing that happens, it's still undeniable that certain sequences are presented in an extremely strange way. If you like movies like that, this is one of the best films you'll ever see. If you don't, I still think you should watch this, because it will speak to you in some way, even if that is just to make you really confused. But I love movies like that, and that's what I've really gotten into over time. And yeah, I think this is a really remarkable film. I don't know if it's recommended for Halloween, even though I did. Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't make it your only Halloween movie. I'd put it that way. But if you fit it in there, there's definitely some Halloweeny stuff in there at points, and it's just a very hard to categorize film. I don't know what time is right for this movie anyway.
I think 3:02.
PM or AM?
That's to your discretion.
Well, um, I have to say
I'm more
goodbye.
before 20, am I right? Hey.
We're going to have to say Sorry. We're going to have to say goodbye to our we're gonna have to say goodbye to our friends as soon as I can get these images up on screen, which I almost forgot about.
Oh, ooh, this is
Ooh,
new. Oh,
wow, oh my, ooh, whoa, okay, it's gone. All
got
right,
some dimension.
we're gonna have to say goodbye to our friends here. So one by one, I would like to say goodbye to Billy. Um, you know what, Steven, I'll let you do our parting words. What are we gonna say to Billy before we let him off?
You know, Billy's been with us from the very beginning. It's almost like Billy's DNA is a part of the show.
Goodbye.
And just like Billy, we're always moving up and down.
We have Mallory's. We have to say goodbye to.
I don't like Mallory's. Get Mallory's off the screen though.
Sorry, buddy. We
Yeah.
got Ashley and Zoe. We must say goodbye to.
Ashley and Zoe, just two incredible dancers. Remind me of the dancer in, or the performer in Eraserhead.
If there were two of them.
If there were two of them, exactly.
And now we have to say goodbye to Gary. Always a
Again,
tough task.
uh, I know, and you know, Gary said goodbye to so many batters with that nasty slider. And now we have to say goodbye to
Lindsay.
Gary. Gary's been playing the 9 innings for so long.
What? And Lindsay, our soloist.
Of course, Lindsay just really rocking the fiddle. You know, actually, the soundtrack of Get Recc'd is brought to you by Lindsay. So the sound that you're hearing right now, aka our voices, is actually being performed on the violin.
Now we must say goodbye. And then we have Mr. P. I don't even know what there is to be said about Mr. P over here.
What do you think the P stands for? And I think we could take a guess, but I don't think it's that. I think it's something else.
I think
Maybe it
it's
stands
I think it's
for.
some kind of undiscovered element. It really looks like a
Mm,
it looks like an element. It looks like it's from the table of
yes, the
whatever. The
periodic, the second
periodic
periodic
table.
table,
Maybe
the
that's what the P stands for.
the
Periodic
newly
table.
revised periodic table.
Goodbye, Mr. P. And then we have to say goodbye to Lance, the sole member of the legal team of HBO Max.
Yeah, thankfully, because that sword is getting really close.
We also have to say goodbye to Beatrice, who's just going crazy on my thumb right now.
Yeah. Um, just trying to get away, and now we can finally say goodbye.
Bye. And then we have Glenda, who honestly has been a bit of a party pooper tonight. I feel like Glenda's just
Yeah,
really, yeah. I mean, I don't really think
they're
either of us are going to be too upset about having to tell Glenda to get out.
they're rocking the thing like a vandal, but it's time to go.
All right, and to my new friend Hector, I'll say goodbye to Hector because Hector is my pal here, just like walking around in my head. I have to say, it doesn't feel too nice. Those bony toes just scraping against my head this entire time has made this episode very difficult. But I do appreciate the rhythm that Hector's got going on. I think it's really admirable. So, Hector, goodbye. I hope next time you won't do that on my head. And finally, Steven, your new friend Stephanie here. I mean, what do you have to say to Stephanie?
Yeah, Stephanie is kind of like a Hector if Hector went into the next dimension and also sped up by like 200%. And I think that's admirable.
Bye, Stephanie. Listen, we really appreciate you. We'll see you next time, I'm sure. I hope. Anyway, with that, we'll get into recommendations. So obviously the Halloween episode is over. We're back to our regular schedule. And what do you have for us, Steven?
Okay, Don, I am going to recommend to you the 2021 album An Evening with Silk Sonic, which is the debut album of Silk Sonic, comprised of Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars. This was a collaboration that I'm sure we'll talk about next time, but felt like a pretty natural progression of where Bruno Mars's career was going. I think they have some new music coming out here soon, but this was their breakout album from last year.
Okay, so we'll talk about that next time, and then as soon as I can get this thing to hello,
Oh, wow.
hello, woo, wow.
Yeah, that was just spooky.
It was oh no, something terrible has gone down. It's just horrible.
See, now this is Malorice's doing. I knew that they were up to something.
Listen, I am a Malorice defender, and even I have to admit that's a little bit suspect. I think might be something going on behind the scenes there. I'll have to talk to about that. I am recommending to you the next batch of episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion, which Steven is still continuing to work through. This is a rec that's like 2 episodes, 3 episodes old now, so it's just an ongoing thing. For the next episode, I'll have you watch episodes 13 through 19. I believe that's 7 episodes, but that'll catch you up to about the third quarter of the series, and then after that point we will have the end of the series and then the film. So that's 3 more Get Recc'd of Evangelion. And I think with all of that, I think we can finally wipe the blood away, get it off the screen. I think it's finally time to take a nice breather after the just night of horrors that we've had tonight and say thank you for watching Get Recc'd.
Halloween is officially over, everyone.
It's over.
So that's it. Based on our new decree, Halloween exists exactly for the length of our podcast until we say it's over, and then it's over. So sorry.
And if you weren't trick-or-treating during that time, you're just not getting any candy this month. It's just not happening. You're going to have to wait till next year.
Which, if you were, you better have been listening to the podcast, or else you wouldn't have known when Halloween ends.
Oh, God, there's going to be so many people all around the globe who are still trick-or-treating indefinitely because they never caught our message. I don't know what we're going to do.
That's their problem now.
Not ours. Oh, we started it. As always, everybody, thank you for watching Get Recc'd. We stream on Twitch now. I believe that you'll be able to catch the recordings of these on my Twitch channel in the highlights section under videos. I'm also going to resume uploading these to the YouTube channel Casting 404. That is not the VODs and Clips channel. That is the channel Casting 404, which you can find by searching Casting 404 or searching Get Recc'd on YouTube. That's where we are. So I'll upload them there, but we are still streaming live on Twitch. Stable future. Thank you for joining us in our Halloween episode. I want to thank all of our friends who joined us as well. I really do appreciate most of them. And that's just about it. Unless you have anything to say, Steven.
No, thank you everyone once again for joining us.
Okay, well then with that, never mind.
I did have one thing.
Sure.
I did have one thing. A bit of housekeeping. No, for sure, won't be recording an episode in the next fortnight, as we usually do. We will not be back for another 3 weeks in this break.
Oh, yes. So you can expect us then. And I guess with that, those were our thoughts and those were our recommendations. Get wrecked.